Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hope you're doing well. We're continuing our deep dive into this radical feminist book. And we've done a really good job, I think, of dissecting her ideas, dismantling some of them, and then understanding where she's coming from, and then how we can critique that from an Islamic perspective, inshallah. Right? So let's continue upon that vein. We have made it into a new chapter. We have survived! Because it's not easy to survive. And we're in the means of reproduction. And so, if you're not familiar, this is a play on words. Karl Marx is the means of production, right? The proletariat versus the bourgeoisie. So, I do think she's an avowed Marxist. She proves it more and more with every text. And communism is not an Islamic value. So, let's begin. Bismillah. Are women people or are they things? What is a woman? Pregnancy is brutal. Every year in Great Britain, 10,000 people are treated for post-traumatic stress disorder as a result of giving birth. Now, I've spoken about birth trauma before. Go ahead and check out my motherhood playlist and check out some of the live streams. I've talked about my experience as a working pregnant woman versus as a stay-at-home mom who's Muslim and then being pregnant and the bliss of that, okay? But the stress after giving birth is very real. And I do follow some home birth people who help women to have a more calm birthing experience, and I often make videos and posts on my blog and other places on Instagram about how you can overcome that. And hospitals could be better. They could, but I think they will in the future because more women are speaking up about their horrible experiences and health insurance companies are starting to cover home births more. But your birthing experience will be a lot better when you have education on your side and you have a family and loved ones and a good husband around you to defend you from the medical staff. Right? And tens of thousands and more are injured in the process of delivery. Yeah, that is true. With the way women and even female animals, on dairy farms, are treated, it's quite horrible. So I'll grant her that. One study of women several months after giving birth found that 29% had fractures in their pubic bones and 41% had tearing and severe damage to the pelvic floor muscles. I can understand that. This is why I've talked about husbands supporting their wives and for women to have some type of spiritual connection and to really, if you didn't have a support system for yourself, to be healthy and hope that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allows you to do it for your daughters, right? For human beings, pregnancy and childbirth are dangerous, risky, exhausting, terrifying, and painful. Yeah, that is true. That's true, but let's see if she talks about the pros. So she's talking about the negatives. Let's see if she says anything kind. Even with modern medical advances, about 1 woman in 10,000 still dies in childbirth, and many more will be permanently and seriously injured. Women frequently emerge from pregnancy and childbirth with permanent nerve damage. That's true. I have that. Lifelong pain or PTSD. Yeah, I have. It took me a while to have my second child because of the PTSD. Horrible. But that's why we have to expose the nurses and the bad doctors. But that's a good blessing of social media, and now women don't have to suffer at all in silence. And I had mentioned this before. Public hospitals, to me, were more shitty than the private ones. Kaiser Permanente treated me a lot better. It was a lot cleaner, nicer, better food, and the nurses were better. And there's some things I would have changed, but it was definitely a better experience. And what was horrible about when I was going to the community clinics with my first child, it's all these different faces, different people, and the person who delivered my baby, he used forceps. It was a terrible experience. Nobody told me how bad Pitocin would be after an induction. I had a doula. I was screaming. I mean, I didn't understand that level of, not only does giving birth hurts regardless, but with the pitocin, because they induced me. Well, now we're dealing with a whole level of pain that I wasn't ready for, you know. But after a C-section, and for my second child, because they were scared of her, that shoulder, I forgot what they call it, when your baby is bigger, they can get stuck, and then they crack a shoulder, and they can't get out, and then you're in a big situation. There's some children who, when they crack their bone, or they break their bones in their shoulders, they get paralysis, and they're unable to use their arm, and that could be permanent for some children. It's quite dangerous for the baby and the mother. But C-section was the safest option for my baby, and so I went under the knife. And my bladder's never been the same. I don't. Sometimes I have to think, and the feeling of when you have to go to the bathroom is different. Now I have permanent numbness and around the incision, and that's never coming back. But I got a healthy baby, alhamdulillah. But the way I felt like my organs were gonna fall out, the hot burning pain of that incision after the medicine wears off, and I just took Tylenol. I didn't want to take any oxycodone. No, I didn't want to have the withdrawals, and I didn't want to get addicted to opioids. I've never been addicted to opioids, but a lot of women do get addicted to opioids because of the C-section pain. I just took regular Tylenol, and I tried my best to endure. And yeah, alhamdulillah, Allah bless me. I had that, but I kept thinking, if I didn't live in a time where C-sections were successful, I literally would have had to make the choice for them to cut me open and take out, like Lori in The Walking Dead, or Rhaenyra Targaryen's mom when she was giving birth in House of the Dragon, right? So there was a time where C-sections were not at all successful, and it was the only way to get the baby out alive at the expense of the mom. But in Islam, if you die during childbirth, you're a martyr. And I thought about Owen Benjamin's wife, Daisy. She, yeah, we call her Daisy. Yeah. And Amy, well, her name's Amy, but they call it, her username is Daisy. So Amy, she had 4 C-sections, and my mom had a C-section, my best friend had a C-section, but when I was under the knife, I thought about Owen Benjamin's wife, and I messaged her on Instagram and told her that, I thought about her, and I said, if she can do 4 of them, I can do 1 of them. And I kept saying, La ilaha illallah, as I was on that table. And I heard one of the women doing the surgery, you're like, oh, you cut her bladder, or you damaged her bladder, or she said something, and the other doctor lady was like, no, I didn't. And I was like, oh no, did they do something? And it's like, if you watch a video of what a C-section looks like, it was very hard for me to get over that, and it's a hard thing. So when she talks about PTSD, I definitely understand that. And as I mentioned, I have, I've mentioned how men do have to learn that their wife might get scarred from childbirth. And so you have to be able to heal from that in order to want to have more children. Because if you don't, then you're going to be stuck. And I regret not seeking help for my PTSD, because I wish I would have had more children when I was in my 20s, because I can feel the energy difference. Now that I'm in my 30s, I can feel the energy difference. I wish I would have had 2 more in my 20s. But, hindsight is 20/20. No pun intended. But I should have gotten some type of professional help for my PTSD. In context, that's about the same risk an American soldier takes on when he or she signs up for a tour of duty in a foreign war. The question of reproduction and the right to choose abortion, the heart of sexual revolution. Now, see what she did here? Oh, it's so scary. it's so scary to have a baby, therefore abortion. No, no, no. See what she did there? So the contrast, she sets the stage for like, oh, instead of saying how wonderful women are, how they risk their life for their children, the joy of children, how your child's worth your life, how you better choose a good husband and not sleep around like a whore like what she wants so that you can know that this man was worth dying for, right? She don't say that. But what she does say is that that baby now should be ripped apart instead of you having to suffer PTSD from birth. You see what she did there? Very sneaky tactic, very wicked woman. Without the absolute right to safely and legally terminate pregnancy, there can be no equality between the genders. Without abortion and birth control, women will never have sexual, social, or economic freedom. So that's not true. That's not true. You can choose what job you got. You can choose who you associate with. You can choose who you have intimacy with. You were the one who chose to open your legs for a guy who was going to pump and dump you and not want to support you. You chose to have intimacy with a broke man who couldn't fund you. You chose that. See, she doesn't take accountability. When someone had I screenshot a tweet once. It's in my archive. But they said consent to sex is consent to conception. And that was very smart. Every time you have intimacy, you are consenting to being fertilized. Birth control is not healthy for you. It's not healthy for men. You don't do that. Instead, you need to close your legs, practice some self-discipline, or accept the consequences, and the child doesn't deserve to have their life ended because you just couldn't control who mounted you, right? That's why the movement to confiscate abortion's right is the moral center of the backlash against women's freedom. You already have the freedom to pick better men, okay? You picked a guy who you didn't want to breed with, which shows that you are pretty wicked upon yourself, that a human being had to have their soul snatched from this world because you couldn't control yourself and you wanted to have 10 minutes of fun, and you allowed him to bust in you when you could have told him to to finish somewhere else, and you could have wore rubber, or you could have just found another way where he could finish on the outside with your hand or something, but she didn't want to. So it's like she doesn't take accountability, and this is what's disgusting. As the debate about a woman's right to choose to terminate pregnancy rages around the global north, as sadistic restrictions on abortion access continue to be written into law by all male committees. No, I would, if I was on a committee, I'm a woman, I wouldn't let you. And if you hurt that child, it would be eye for an eye. You take the life of that baby, your life is forfeit. Right? A woman who dies in childbirth goes to paradise. You snuffing your child's life from this world because you pick inferior men and you like inferior men and you don't want to give the child up for adoption. You're just an inferior person and you should be treated as such. The physical realities of pregnancy and birth are almost never discussed. Yes, they are, but you're just making it seem like you have no control over who mounts you. Just yesterday I saw a post on statistics that listed why women get abortions, and R-wording and incest are less than 5%. Usually it's just about it's not the right time and things like that. It's not really a legitimate reason. Not a good enough reason. The public conversation around abortion still centers on the question of whether a fetus has human rights, whether a fetus can feel pain. See, what she does here is the dehumanizing language. See, this is how you know you're dealing with a sick woman. When she calls a baby a fetus. If your doctor is calling it a fetus, you need to be careful, because when I was talking about what's the gender of my baby, how's my baby, they would say fetus. And you're like, whoa. Like, this wicked, dead, atheistic terminology. It's gruesome. So they use medical language in order to take away the specialness of fertility. And then these same women will abort their babies when they're healthy, and then use IVF and surrogacy when they're older. They're messed up, demented, miserable, noxic human people. Whether a fetus is a person, the question of whether a fetus is a person is unanswerable by science. Well, your science. See, this is the big problem with atheists. They say, well, we have human rights. We love humans. Religion is so barbaric. And that just shows you how little they think of the miracle of life. They don't think you as a pregnant woman are special. They don't think there's anything spiritual and wonderful about you being healthy and you're touching your womb, you feel your baby move, and you're just so thankful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the opportunity to be a mom, and you're nervous but excited. Science just says, nah, what you're carrying in is a clump of cells, ain't nothing special. And if you have a miscarriage, they're like, doesn't matter, it's just like going poo. It's nothing special, nothing to be sad about. It's just a bunch of, nothing special, a bunch of cells. Nothing at all. So when the abortionist they have to make sure they got the hands, the fingers, they can't leave anything inside. So as they're taking human remains and stuffing it into the biohazard plastic bag in order to be put into a refrigeration system, right? And then put it in the back of a truck and taken away. Human remains, just like pig slop. They don't see it in anything special. So if they can do that to a baby, what makes you think they're going to care about you when you're old? We got to get rid of people. We're all animals, right? It's really sick. Instead of telling women, pick better men, close your legs, don't be a hedonist, make smarter decisions, become a better person, be more moral, be more virtuous, be more pure. No, she doesn't tell you to do that. She just says scientists don't think that your little baby is anything special and worthy of taking care of. It's really sick. These women are not your friend. These women want to destroy you as a mom. They're not your friend. She hates heterosexuality, so of course she's going to hate motherhood. The question of whether a woman is a person, however, is not up for debate, and it is a female personhood and female pain that ought to decide the issue. Sometimes, though, men get together in a room to decide otherwise. So isn't this interesting? She's admitting that men care more about babies than women. Think about that. That men are fighting so children don't have to die. Sometimes, though, men get together in a room, and then it says in June 2019, 25 white men and 0 women made up the legislative team that effectively banned abortion in the state of Alabama. See how she puts the race in there? How many black men are against abortion? How many Arab men? Think about it. But she knows who she can pick on. She knows who it's safe to be racist against. In the same month, draconian new anti-abortion measures also won wide margins of approval in Georgia. I thought you were all about democracy. Right? Oh, democracy! As I write, more such laws are being debated, right the way up to the highest courts of the world's leading superpower. So, it's really sick, They always use the very niche examples of, when someone got violently pregnant. But if somebody has had, 4 abortions electively, they'll never call that woman bad. It's just really sick. Really sick individuals. Sick individual. Such a terrible person. Okay. We live in a culture that is comfortable letting men get away with gotta word this in a way where it doesn't get flagged. Violence, sexual violence, but determined not to let women get away with consensual sex. This isn't true. No, it's illegal on the books. So you're not getting away with it. But, okay, if you're proven wrong that a man didn't R-word you, you should serve the prison sentence he would have served, to cut down on these fake accusations. This is why there are vast swaths of society that are comfortable giving vast executive and judicial power to men credibly accused of R-wording, on the condition that those same men promise to confiscate women's power to sexually self-determine. You can already do that by deciding where you go. You know, don't get blackout drunk in a room full of strangers in your la porno land. You can think, I could just get blackout drunk, be totally naked, and no man will ever touch me. You hope a man would bring a blanket and cover you and not touch you. But the world is full of malicious souls, and it always will be, so you must be smart. You open your eyes while driving, right? You don't just close your eyes on the freeway as you're blasting down. You read the instructions on medicine before you take it. Don't get blackout drunk and high around strange people at parties. You know, you have to have some... That's why Islam is smart. Because we say don't take intoxicants and no free mixing. You know, you gotta be so careful. Female sexual freedom is the moral outrage that unites the religious right with neoconservatives who want to shrink the welfare state until it's small enough to slip into a woman's underwear, while conservatives center the ideal of personal freedom and freedom from the state interference and rhetoric, but that personal freedom was never supposed to apply to women. The appeal to the importance of choice does not work on the people to whom women's freedom of choice is fearful thinking. The centerpiece of anti-abortion campaigning is the wickedness of women who choose to have abortions for social reasons, i.e. because they simply don't want to be pregnant. I mean, it is pretty wicked. There's a lot of free birth control, honey. You got over 10 different forms. You can close your legs. You can stop being a frog and jumping into every bed that will have you. You gotta, calm yourself. You really do. It's like she makes it sound like she just can't. She's like a rabbit just out there getting all nasty type of STDs. Those women are framed as irredeemably selfish. Yeah, you are. You are. And yes, some of them are selfish. If selfish means actively choosing to prioritize your own needs and desires above those of a potential child. See, what a wicked human being. Why are you sleeping with men who don't care about you? Selfless should not be a legal duty imposed on women on pain of death or jail. Choosing to have a baby you don't want to raise might make you a nice person, but nobody should be threatened with jail for not being nice. It's not just about being nice. It's about doing the right thing and accepting the consequences of your actions. There's an expression of don't do the crime if you can't do the time. Okay? Somebody want to carjack? Well, guess what, honey? You're going to jail. You're going to jail. So if you do the deed, be ready for what comes after. The biggest lies about women's rights are told by people who are trying to take them away. In anxious, violent times when oppression is enacted under a deafening barrage of propaganda, it's important to listen out for the silence. It's vital, in other words, to listen to what's not being said by those who are making the most noise. The cacophony of outrage shapes itself around a painful silence, one that prevents us from pronouncing the actual stakes at play. Controlling abortion and contraception has always been part of a white supremacist drive to reshape the species by force. Hold up. Hold on now. In America, look up what race aborts their children the most, then look up eugenics, Margaret Sanger, Planned Parenthood. Okay? white people get less abortions. Okay? So if white people are fighting against abortion, that means they're trying to save black babies' lives. And if you're pushing abortion, that means you're fighting to get rid of black children. To decide which bodies are protected and which are allowed to die. It was anti-choice evangelicals in 2018 who, together with some carefully timed voter suppression, gave Georgia Governor Brian Kemp his razor-thin contested victory over Stacey Abrams. Oh my goodness. Razor-thin. Razor-thin. Stacey Abrams is a schmuck. His black female Democratic opponent. Kemp simply delivered on the promise he made to white evangelicals. Again, race. She is a racist. And former President Donald Trump, who made manic mouth sounds about babies being executed at birth on his campaign trail. I saw the viral clip where the governor of Georgia said that yes, there was post-birth abortion. YouTube tried to erase it, and the Nova Harari and these other types of individuals, they're infanticide. That you can abort a baby right until you're about to deliver, as long as the baby's inside you, even if it's fully developed and can be adopted. You should be able to abort it. And the most interesting part is they'll say you can get an abortion in order to save the mother's life, but you can give her a C-section and then save the child's life. You can give her a C-section, take out the baby to save her life and the baby's life without ending the life of the child. So that's just false. Just crazy. There's some other things here where she's going on, like she went on to Mandela, Mozart, so I'm not gonna go through all of that. Okay. White male slave owners, meanwhile, had absolute right to the bodies of black women. There are no slaves today, honey. And all the black women getting abortions are not slaves. And they're aborting black men's children, on average. Had absolute right to the bodies of black women who were routinely R-worded by slaveholders and forbidden to prevent pregnancy. Any child born to a slave, after all, was a valued capital asset, the uncontested property of the mother's master. All of that changed after abolition, when white Americans suddenly began to panic about being outbred by non-white people. Yeah, so being outbred, so what's the solution? Okay, let's push abortion in the black community, and they'll rid themselves, and we'll keep having kids, and then we'll outnumber them. So, one minute she's like, if black people stop aborting their kids, they'll have more the kids than white people, and then you'd be like, okay, cool, more black babies are being allowed to live. But she's saying, no, abort those babies. Suddenly, the great concern was that free black women were having too many babies, and that white women, by not having enough, might be committing race suicide, a phrase that resurfaced among the far-right and racist factions of the mainstream throughout the industrial age. Do you see how she just flip-flopped here? She's mad that white people want to have a lot of children, and she's mad that racists want blacks to have less children, but she's telling women to have less children and to utilize abortion to the fullest extent. It's really quite bizarre. I would not want to be with her at a dinner table, I'll tell you that. The mid to late 19th century was the period when abortion restrictions began to be formalized across the developed world, placing women's health choices in the hands of the state, along with experimental eugenic programs designed to keep the non-white population down through the early 20th century. So, what about forced abortions like what China had? Laws regulating abortion and contraception, especially for white women, were instituted, along with programs of mass enforced sterilization of black and immigrant women. So you don't like sterilization, but you do like uh, abortion being used as a form of medical care. Eugenics is now a term that conjures instant outrage, rightly so. So you don't like eugenics, but you like Planned Parenthood, which is a eugenic corporation. But it is easy to forget that before the Second World War, eugenics was considered a reputable scientific and political practice in many nominally liberal democracies. Early birth control campaigners like Margaret Sanger, okay, she's mentioned Margaret Sanger here, famously resorted to eugenic language to persuade the white men in power that making birth control widely available was the only way to guarantee a healthy, strong, and white citizen stock. Okay, so how can you be in favor of abortion if you know it's a tool of eugenicists? And one of the first public figures to use the term race suicide in this context was Theodore Roosevelt. Oh, okay, we'll have to check that out. We'll have to fact check her and see if that's true. Since the early days of colonial expansion, the history of abortion and birth control policies have been mainly associated with racist ideas about nationhood and demographic control. Far-right movements have always been obsessed with sexually controlling their women. So she doesn't want women to be sexually guided. It kind of like, hey, you know what? You should be like a bonobo, like the neighborhood stray dog. And as you walk down the street, just put your butt in the air and just get humped by all these kind of dudes. Yeah, you know, why practice self-control when you got abortion to save you? I mean, am I right? I mean, she said she puts out on by the third date, so, you know, she's not exactly somebody who you should look to for moral means. One of the few common ideological refrains among almost all repressive regimes is the insistence that women's bodies are the property of the state, and that reproductive choice is not a right but a luxury that women should willingly sacrifice for the good of the nation or else. The good of the nation? Nationalism. Now, I did a video called Seed the Wombs, and I stand by that. I like encouraging Muslim women to have lots of children, because giving birth to Muslim children, as Muslims in Palestine are being laid waste to, and as Muslims are being oppressed in China, I think if you live in a place with peace, clean water, access to food, and proper medical care, that you should have as many Muslim babies as you can afford and maintain with a safe level. I think that would be a good thing, you know. So yeah, we are one ummah, and I think talking about fertility, embracing fertility is important for us. The same demographic panic has metastasized across Europe and America today. In the modern age, the phrase white genocide has become current, incubating in the cesspools of online hate speech. Hate speech. What a hypocrite. Hypocrisy, I'm gonna write right here. She doesn't like hate speech. But what she has said about religious men and white women, white people, and mothers, I'd argue, her book would be classified by her own standards as hate speech. The amount of vitriol she has expressed towards heterosexual white men and heterosexual white Christian men is hate speech. So, if white people talk about how their bloodlines are being reduced, that's hate speech. But if black people have black supremacist views, then that's okay. No, this is how you know you're not dealing with a serious individual. No. What is used to mean simply not enough white babies being born. So she don't want white babies being born. She wants babies to be aborted. You know? She's not telling black women not to go to Planned Parenthood, who are the number one demographic. Nope. She's saying, it's freedom to end the life of your own baby. That's the kind of woman she is. So, a very wicked individual. The U.S. subtracts from its population 1 million of our babies in the form of abortion, Republican Representative Steve King told a far-right Austrian magazine. We add to our population approximately 1.8 million of somebody else's babies who were raised in another culture before they get to us. We are replacing our American culture 2 to 1 every year. It bears repeating there is little moral difference between a man forcing a woman to have intimacy against her will and the state, or a controlling partner forcing her to be pregnant against her will. At least our wording apologists are slightly more honest about it, and this level of state control is a new and historically unprecedented attack on women's bodily autonomy. So women's bodily autonomy. The best thing I could tell you right now, sisters, pick a man who you want to have children with and love your children and never get an abortion. You must close your legs. You must stay away from men who only want to throw you away. Do not do a no-strings nikah marriage. Don't do muta marriage. You need to have a real marriage. Take it seriously. Do not have intimacy before marriage. It can be so hard. I understand. But now that we have the knowledge about how it's far better to stay pure till marriage, we must educate women. Some will fail, as we all have failed. Those of us reverts, we didn't know. We grew up in a hedonistic world. Look at the way this woman talks. No wonder why so many women are led astray by other women. But you're safer from STDs, from violence and trauma, heartbreak, if you wait until marriage. And only pick a man who, if you find out you're pregnant, you're pleased with it. Pick a man who you crave to be impregnated by. That is an aphrodisiac for you. Trust me. Have intimacy with somebody who, when you're pregnant, you're like, yay! Oh. Do not open your legs for anyone other than your husband, and do not marry someone who you would hate to be pregnant by. That is the solid female advice, regardless of what these feminists tell you. She's ignoring she talked about how painful pregnancy is and dangerous childbirth is, but notice how she did not mention how dangerous abortion is. She said no consequences of the side effects of birth control. So she didn't tell you the negative sides of birth control or abortion, and she told you no positive things about pregnancy and motherhood and childbirth. This is how you know her agenda. Okay? This is why I break down her work and why I think that she is a monster. Ideas of race, nation, and territory have always been embedded in the anti-choice movement as a pernicious double standard about whose lives matter. Okay. The baby's lives matter, madam. The state of Alabama, for example, cares so much about life that it executes more prisoners per capita than almost any other state. So here, do you see what she did? You cannot compare the felon to the baby. Innocence versus guilty people. Baby equals innocent. Criminal equals punishment. The baby is owed life. The criminal is owed its punishment. Didn't I tell you that liberals are soft on crime? She has more empathy for someone who's hurt another human being, who's hurt women, who's hurt children, who's hurt elderly people, financially, physically, R wording, you name it, and she is sad. that these felons get clocked out of this universe. She's not sad that an innocent, cute baby with his little teeny tiny toes was murked brutally by an abortionist, literally dismembered. If you did to an adult what you did to a newborn babe in its mother's womb, you'd be like, that's cruel. This is how you know they're not consistent. See, they flip it on you, though. Oh, you say you're pro-life? but you don't protect the felon from getting consequences from his actions? And then you say, hold up. So you feel nothing for an innocent, cute, adorable baby who loves their mom no matter what and who is just a bundle of joy, okay? You feel nothing for them, but for this criminal who, like, beat someone with a baseball bat or shanked somebody in broad daylight or took their car and ran over a bunch of people, you feel bad for them. You don't think eye for an eye for them. You don't think they should just be sitting in prison, you know, having homemade wine, smuggled drugs and orgies with other men, and water and a roof over their head. They never have to work again. They got books, you know. They deserve all that. But the babe, nah, they don't deserve to be adopted. They don't deserve to have a loving family. But the felon deserves everything. You see, they're backwards. They're backwards. It had an execution scheduled for the day after Governor Key Ivey signed the state's abortion ban into law. There is nothing wrong with getting rid of criminals. There is something wrong with getting rid of cute babies, madam. That's not the only thing about the forced birth movement. See, about forced birth, how they twist the language? Then we should say forced death. Forced death. That seems to stink of hypocrisy. The people who believe that motherhood is precious do not rip toddlers away from their parents and keep them in sweltering cages at the borders. Those cages were built under Obama. Google hides that now. So that's why, I wish we need to have like a real archive, because Google is a Democrat, liberal, progressive organization that hides truth. But Obama built those cages and Trump used them. And a lot of the people at the border, they were human smugglers. And those children were being trafficked. And they were not tested as to see if they were genetically related to the child. 2,000 children went missing at the border. And those children are in the hands of predators usually. And women work for the cartels as well, bringing children in to be used in bad rituals and abused. People who are concerned with the sanctity of life do not advocate for lethal firearms to be sold at every strip mall. People who care about the unborn do not torpedo legislation designed to ensure that the planet those kids inherit is not wholly on fire. Wholly on fire, climate change alarmism. How does taxing us do anything for the weather? Despite all these crushing moral contradictions, forced birth extremists are not hypocrites, quite the contrary. Underlying all of the pious, disingenuous cant of their crusade is a terrifying logistical consistency. There is a common thread that cinches together border paranoia, military fetishism, and obsessive state control of women's bodies. It is chauvinism in nightmare mode. Okay, chauvinism, sexists, and chauvinists, and sexists. A dark story told by frightened child men about the right of strong fathers and stern paternal leaders to protect resources. Okay, so see how she hates men so much? She lives in a first world nation where she doesn't have to worry about evil men attacking her, and she's protected by men in the police force protecting resources and men in the government doing dangerous and dirty jobs to keep the economy flowing. Okay? Resources of the United States are protected through the military and through the police departments. Okay? Like, she doesn't see the irony of her view. Okay, it would be a good experiment. Take an island Or just make it like an artificial commune. Put all gay men and then put all straight heterosexual men in one part and give them the equal amount of resources and just see how the societies produce. You know? See how they design their architecture, see what kind of food they create, just see the difference in the brain patterns. Because you have to be stern and not bend at every woman's whining, And in that story, women's bodies are a resource, one that men should be able to access freely. She literally, because she doesn't want men to access women's bodies freely, but she wants women to give up the booty freely, willy-nilly, with no strings attached, outside of marriage, and she doesn't see anything wrong with that. Women should not have the right to refuse men intimacy or to abort the baby a man put inside her. Okay. No one has ever said that you can't refuse your husband. Okay. Let's look this. Okay, so if you're married, when you get married, part of the benefit is sharing intimacy with the person you decided to marry. Okay, you refuse too much, you break down your relationship, and you break the bond, and you make your husband suffer, and it's not a healthy thing to keep over time, and you lure him to temptation because you're denying him his right. And you as a wife, if you want it and he doesn't give it to you, that hurts you if you really like him. You'd be hurt. You'd be like, what are you doing? I'm mad at you. You feel like you're owed something when you're married. You both have a duty and honor to each other. No one ever said that a woman owes a man she isn't married to intimacy. Women are not supposed to get angry when we talk about abortion. An angry woman, more or less by definition, is a crazy woman, and a crazy woman can't be trusted with bodily autonomy. Although apparently she can be trusted with a baby. What we're supposed to do instead is quietly and politely explain, even to the fanatics hijacking the agenda of world governments, that banning abortion takes away autonomy, as if they didn't know. Of course banning abortion takes away women's autonomy. That is the point of banning abortion. That's the whole point. Well, best thing I'd say is that practice some control over your lust. Stop sleeping with mediocre men. Alright? Get creative and find ways where he can finish somewhere not inside of you. No, you are letting him do that. You're not having a mature conversation with him about where he should finish. Alright? And consent to sex is consent to conception. That's the proof. That's the proof in the pudding. The strategy of patriarchal revisionists, especially on the politically influential evangelical Christian right, has long been to strip women and girls of dignity. No. Let's break this down. Christians want to restore dignity to women by telling them not to be harlots. This woman, she degrades women to being very animalistic, ghastly Jezebels. And she defended women going into brothel culture and forced them to bear unwanted children in the name of religious obedience. The children deserve to live, and you may not want the pregnancy, and then later the child's born, and then you learn to love them. But either way, sometimes in life you have to make tough choices. And your 10 minutes of booty butt, smack butt, well, you decided to do that. You consented to it. You enjoyed it. You let him finish in you. There's accountability. You have to go to work to earn your paycheck. You don't talk to the boss really bad and insult everybody and insult customers, right? You know you gotta earn your paycheck. Why is it that you can suck up working at a crappy job, but you can't suck it up when it comes to raising a child? I don't know, man. It's just weird, these people. Obedience to religious authority, to the father as head of the family, to God, and to the state, is the very essence of evangelical thought. And in all of these models of obedience, women are obliged to accept suffering as part of their natural lot. Sorry, even in your atheistic little Marxist crap, suffering is part of this world. Suffering is innate to Earth. It cannot be separated. That's why I love to look at different nature clips. Mud can bring down a mighty elephant. A mama elephant walking with her baby. There's some mud. Baby elephant gets stuck. Mama gets stuck. She finds a way out, but she can't get to the baby. It's entrenched. Baby dies. Mama wildebeest, baby wildebeest crossing a water body. Crocodile snatch up the baby, drown it. Lunch is served. Okay? There are baby birds whose mom never returns. There are parrots who get snatched up in the wild by predator birds. There are falcons, kestrels, and hawks who lay eggs, and a crow comes and pokes at the egg and finishes off the nest. Alright? There are ducklings following in their mama around on the water, and here comes a fox, snatched. That is Earth. Ants, they travel constantly looking for food, bringing it back to the colony. They go to war with other ant colonies. Wasps fly around. They find a honeybee hive. The wasp goes in, starts crunch, crunch, attacking those honeybees. Honeybees swarm. There's a battle. Okay. African hornets versus honeybees. They murk them. The mama scorpion has to walk. She got all little baby scorpions on her back. She's doing her thing. She's trying her best. You know, it's a brutal world. The mama anaconda, she gives birth to live babies. They're immediately on their own from birth. They're live born. They're not hatched. They're birthed. They swim in the water. No mama for you. You're in the world now. It's a dangerous world for anacondas. Anacondas are big snakes who don't have a habitat anymore and who are constantly beaten with a stick by humans. And they used to have a whole habitat, right? No matter which way you square it, baby lambs high up in the Peruvian mountains and the Andes mountains. There's golden eagles, brown eagles, fly, snatch up a baby lamb. There it goes. Sayonara, see you later. There are bald eagles snatching fish right out of the water. The fish is like, wow, oh my goodness, I'm flying in the air, I'm about to get eaten. Oh, there goes my head. You know. There are whales who are going through the ocean who swallow garbage, pass away, and end up on a beach as food for birds. Okay? No matter which way you look at it, there's going to be some form of suffering for creatures on this planet. Humans cannot avoid suffering. Okay? It is our natural lot to have suffering, but what does the hadith tell us? I'm summarizing, but we will be recompensed for our sufferings, even if it's the pricking of a thorn. One of my favorite hadiths. Okay? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is swift in accounting. Okay? Suffering expiates sins. How you respond to it is important. Being steadfast. You don't rebel against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You don't give in to shaitan. You stay on the straight path. You stay sober. Stay vigilant. Stay doing good. Have gracious patience. Don't become resentful. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala testing you like Prophet Job. Peace be upon him. Great example. Alright? You're gonna have suffering. Jacob's sons, they didn't get along. That's suffering for him. Joseph, betrayed by his brothers for a while. Suffering for him. His brothers getting jealous of Joseph. Feeling jealous. That's suffering. Okay? Noah had to watch people in the, get, like, when things got haywire, he had to watch those people lose their lives. Like, no matter which way you look at it, there's going to be suffering. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, had to go to battles. Okay, he had to see believers pass on the battlefield, the smell, risking his life. Okay, he went sometimes without food. There was times where he prostrated and prayed, and there was a little bit of mud on him. All right, he had a very hard upbringing. All right, look at life in the rural Antarctica, rural regions where it's the winter tundra, the Bedouins, the heat they endure, the people in the Amazon rainforest, the bugs they have to encounter, people in the concrete jungles in the cities with no nature around, no beauty around, just the smell of cars, garbage, and homeless people mumbling themselves. No matter which habitat you go into, there's going to be a form of suffering. Okay. If you flew high in the sky, you'd be complaining how lonely you are. Oh, it's so high up, I can't see anybody. There's no one around to visit me. I'm flying so high, yay. And then if you went down deep into the ocean, oh, there's no light down here. It's so dark. There's barely any fish. There's no coral life here. The deeper you go, the more empty it gets. Oh, I'm in Middle Earth now. Oh, I'm on the savannah. It's so crowded here. There's all these different people here. Oh my gosh. No matter where you go, there's going to be benefits and there's going to be a struggle. Okay? She is not wise. Okay? Even in non-religious contexts, women are expected to put up with pain. Yeah, just like men, honey. This is why I'm going to do more, still doing research, but men doing infrastructure jobs. Look at roofing. It is 90 degrees right now. There are men who are doing roofing right now. Okay? While these feminists are in the air conditioning, I love some air conditioning, I got it on now. But, imagine being on your period, roofing, 90 degrees. That would be miserable. And yet, the men are doing it, and they're trying to earn money so their kids can have a birthday party, so they can go on vacation, they can save for something that their wife wants, something that he needs for the health insurance. Maybe his wife wants braces or something, whatever it is. Men deal with suffering constantly. Constantly. Landscapers, construction workers, in the heat. Underwater welding, dangerous job, mostly done by men, okay? Super dangerous job. Cold, harsh conditions under the ocean. Does she mention that? She doesn't, because she's an ungrateful, misguided wench. Particularly women of color. Sorry, again, her racism, pretending other ethnicities don't suffer. Look at the poor women of China. Look at the Palestinian women right now. Her racism, her black supremacy is very odd. Whose pain is routinely dismissed by medical authorities around the global north. And this has serious consequences, including for maternal health. In the United States, black women are 3 times as likely as white women to die in childbirth, and black children are twice as likely as white children to die in the first year of life. Part of the reason for that, as Professor Tracy McMillan Cotton writes, is that black women are not considered reliable narrators of their own experience. Well, the thing is that the medical field is pretty brutal. You have to watch out. It's something that you need to be aware of. You need to be careful. Really gotta be careful. I wish, there would be reform, but the medical establishment, big pharma, it's a very weird conglomerate. I often wondered, we have this big planet of ours. Think what medicinal properties are in, each tree's leaves, each tree's bark, every kind of mushroom. Not the psychedelic mushrooms, regular mushrooms. What are in, the plants all over the earth? there's some medicine in there. Why don't they study that more? But Big Pharma, I think, doesn't fund that kind of stuff. They're not interested in natural remedies or fixing our diets. You know, what chemicals cause certain ailments in the human body? Medicine is a wide category. So I hope one day, inshallah, that there can be better medical care for all races. But if you know that there's some treachery around medical care, have your family there with you. Fact check. You know, liberals hate it when you say do your own research, but you don't want to have something to be fake, but our food is so important. Organic, non-GMO food, quality meat from healthy, happy animals, homesteading, taking care of our farmers, pure water, fixing pollution. It's all related. We have to figure out how do we keep our bodies healthy so we don't need to go to the doctors. You know? And then, if you find a good doctor, share that with other people. Let them know. There's something to be said, you know? But again, I do not like much of what this woman says. Hope you enjoyed. I hope that you learned something and you've made it through the end of the video. Please like, comment, and subscribe. And if you'd like to support my work, I'm not monetized, and be sort of sponsor for me, you can do so by joining my blog for $5 a month, or however, if you want to do 10 or more, that's up to you, but the minimum is 5. And it's www.subscribestar.com/Milahan Archive. I hope to see you there. And I think what I'm doing here is very important. It's a very important service for the Muslim community, and I think Western reverts have a lot to learn when it comes to debunking feminism, but we have a unique perspective of it because we've got to see the trash. To other cultures it may seem appealing, but if we know the rot, we know the misguidance, we have a duty to enlighten others across the world who maybe haven't caught up yet on what pure degeneracy is being spewed by these sophists, by these wretched wenches, you know. Something to think about. May Allah guide us and protect us. May Allah get rid of the corruptors of the world. May Allah punish those who spread sexual corruption in the land. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it so that women pick better husbands, control their desires, and have mercy on children. May women have mercy on children and not punish them for the sins of their father, for their own sins. And may women keep their babies, love their babies, and do right by them, because they are a gift. All children are a gift, and it's hard to be a mom, but it's a noble duty. And suffering is part of this dunya, it's part of this realm, and you must rise, and you must be steadfast, and you must not crumble, and you have to take those scars with a grin and keep going and not crumble under the pressure. Take care, fam. Till next time.